In Jedi Survivor, Cal stumbles upon a Jedi from the High Republic by the name of Dagan Gera, and as Cal connects with Dagan through the Force, we begin to see past events, beginning with Dagan's discovery and introduction of the planet Tanalorr to his fellow Jedi Santari Khri. And after learning about how deeply connected the planet is to the Force, Dagan proposes the idea of building a Jedi temple on the planet to train initiates in the ways of the Force. However, Dagan's proposal of building a temple on Tanalorr isn't met with immediate enthusiasm, especially from the Jedi Council. And as the Council deliberated on whether they should allow Dagan to establish a temple on the planet, we are then shown several ships exiting hyperspace, letting us know that the enemies of the Jedi Order have arrived. But the flashback sequence ends there. We don't really get an up-close look at who these enemies are, nor are we told more about them. In fact, the next time we talk about the incident, Dagan only refers to them as invaders. He talks about how he was able to fend them off for a time, but ultimately there proved to be far too many invaders, forcing the Jedi Council to order a retreat and to never return to Tanalorr. And besides this tidbit of information, not much else is given, which begs the question of just who exactly are these invaders? Well, of course, for those who are unfamiliar with the era of the High Republic, the answer to who these invaders are might not be so obvious, but I think the invaders in question are the Nihil. For those who are unfamiliar, the Nihil were a criminal organization based in the Outer Rim and incredibly active during the time of the High Republic. Led by Marchion Ro, who was deeply anti-Jedi, the Nihil were primarily the antagonists for the Jedi during the High Republic era, being responsible for the destruction of the Starlight Beacon and the Great Hyperspace Disaster. And there are a few clues that point to the Nihil as being responsible for the invasion of Tanalorr as well. Given the difficulty of navigating a ship into Tanalorr due to the space anomaly called the Abyss surrounding the planet, which is why Cal needed the arrays to navigate through this treacherous bit of space in the first place. Not to mention, even with the arrays, Cal still needed a lot of luck and a quick hyperspace jump to make it work, and the difficulty of navigating through the Abyss really narrows down who could be the invaders. And given the number of them that appeared over Tanalorr, it's pretty clear that whoever had such capabilities had it en masse. And this is indeed something the Nihil would be capable of, using a technology known as the Path Engines, which was a specialized hyperdrive that allowed the user to enter and exit hyperspace at any given location. The same technology that made the Nihil such a force to be reckoned with during the High Republic era, making their attacks unpredictable and unorthodox. Whereas standard hyperdrives required predetermined routes of entry and exit, Path Engines were completely violating this rule. Although it is worth noting that the Path Engines were only truly operational due to the use of Mary Santeka's force abilities to navigate hyperspace, providing the Nihil with the necessary coordinates and calculations in order to operate the engine. And so, despite the difficulties of the Abyss, with the Path Engines and Mary Santeka, the Nihil could very well navigate through this treacherous bit of space en masse, allowing them to bring in the necessary numbers for an invasion to overpower the Jedi Order on Tanalorr. It is also worth noting that during this time, the Nihil were really the only ones with the necessary reach and numbers to challenge the Jedi Order. Given that the era was mostly peaceful for the Republic, the Nihil were really the only enemies that could seriously challenge the Republic. Furthermore, the Nihil were also known to conduct raids and attacks on remote Jedi Temple outposts. Given the expanding nature of the Republic, the Jedi Order had a growing number of temples as exploration and colonization expanded further into the Outer Rim. Naturally, these outposts threatened the operational capabilities of the Nihil, leading to a series of coordinated attacks on these remote outposts. And this back and forth between the Jedi and the Nihil in these remote regions of the Republic could also be why Dagan was so obsessed with constructing a Jedi temple on Tanalorr. Given the growing frequency of these attacks, a Jedi temple on Tanalorr would also be isolated from Nihil raids. The difficulty of accessing Tanalorr and the inability for communications to reach in or out of the system would make it an ideal location, especially if the location of Tanalorr was kept a secret. At the same time, should the Nihil find out about such an ambition, it wouldn't be surprising that they would also be interested in destroying it before it could get started. Given the Nihil's policy to attack remote Jedi outposts, especially in the Outer Rim, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for them to immediately act on this development. Not to mention the sheer amount of pressure that the Nihil were putting on the Jedi during this period was immense. Besides the conventional ways of killing the Jedi, the Nihil also made use of the Nameless, a monster that fed on Force users. Also known as the Shrikari, these beasts were able to paralyze the Jedi through their connection with the Force and devour them, leaving behind a lifeless husk. And the difficulty of handling these creatures and the other Nihil attacks, the Jedi Order was forced to pull back its members. Unable to effectively counter the Nihil, the Jedi Order ordered all Jedi to return to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, which could also be why the Jedi never returned to Tanalorr, much to the anger of Dagan. It's also a possibility that because the Nihil were now aware of the existence of Tanalorr and have demonstrated their capabilities to get there, the Jedi Council might have felt that building a temple on Tanalorr would simply not have worked out. With the abyss that was supposed to shield the temple from the wider galaxy basically no longer an obstacle, creating a Jedi temple there would be a death sentence to whoever was stationed there, especially since it would be impossible for the Jedi stationed there to call in reinforcements as there was no communication in or out of Tanalorr. And so I just think that it makes a lot of sense that the invaders of Tanalorr were the Nihil. Based on their capabilities and timing of the whole situation, it just seems like the Nihil are the culprits behind the attack. I also think it's worth mentioning that while we can't see the shapes of the ship or any distinctive markings, the color scheme of red and black does fit in line with the Nihil's design, which is why for me, all signs really point to them as the invaders. So that's all for this video. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. I'm the Lost Acolyte,
and I have spoken.